In this video, we're going to look at reviewing fraction skills to help with your Math 10 course. Let's start with multiplying fractions. Unfortunately, we just don't have time to explain the whys, and we're going to be focusing on some review today. In fact, we've already reviewed multiplying by fractions. When we multiplied 4 halves by 3/3, we got our 12/6. When we multiply two fractions together, we multiply the numerators. In this case, we'll look at 2 multiplied by 7. We'll multiply our denominators, 3 multiplied by 5. And our product, the answer we get when we multiply, is 14/15. If we take a look at something where we have an integer multiplied by a fraction, sometimes students make mistakes there. We might say that 8 multiplied by 1/3, 8 groups of 1 is 8, and 8 groups of 3 is 24. Unfortunately, that's not correct. A good way to remind ourselves about this is to show that denominator, anything divided by 1 is equal to itself, and turn that 8 into the fraction 8/1. And now we can see 8 multiplied by 1 is 8, and 1 multiplied by 3 is 3, and the correct answer is 8/3. Dividing fractions often gives students a lot of trouble. Let's take a look at some correct divisions for a moment. 5 divided by 4, that can be written as the fraction 5/4. 10 divided by 1/2. If I have 10 apples and I cut them in half, I'm going to have 20 halves. 3/7 divided by 3. Well, if I have 3 of them and I put them into 3 groups, each group should have 1/7. And then lastly, 4/3 divided by 2/5. This one feels a lot weirder. It's harder to use logic to work through. The correct answer is 26, or in lowest terms, 10/3. But how do we get there? This involves the idea of reciprocating. To reciprocate means to flip a fraction over by trading its numerator and denominator. In other words, we make the reciprocal. When we're dividing fractions, we reciprocate that second fraction, what we're dividing by. So instead of 5 divided by 4, the reciprocal will be 1/4. 5 multiplied by 1/4 is 5/4. Instead of 10 divided by 1/2, we think of 10 multiplied by 2. Instead of 3/7 divided by 3, we think of 3/7 multiplied by 1/3. And instead of 4/3 divided by 2/5, we think about 4/3 multiplied by 5/2. So again, when we're dividing fractions, we leave the first fraction alone, we reciprocate the second fraction, now we multiply the two fractions together and reduce our answer if possible. Adding and subtracting fractions. We've also seen examples of this today when we looked at going from a mixed number to an improper fraction. The key here is having the same denominator. So if we're looking at 1/2 adding to 1/4, we're going to change that 1/2 into an equivalent fraction that has the same denominator. In this case, 2/4. 2/4 added to 1/4 is equal to 3/4, and there's our answer. If we look at subtracting, it works the same. If we look at 7/10 subtracting 3/5, we want to create a common denominator. A little bit later on in this course, we'll talk about a way to find the lowest possible common denominator. But for now, maybe you happen to think of 20. So we're going to rewrite these fractions in terms of 20ths. When we create our equivalent fractions, we find 14 divided by 20 and 12 divided by 20. And now that we're subtracting the fractions, 14/20 subtract 12/20 is equal to 2/20. 2/20, that fraction isn't in lowest terms yet, so we can simplify that to become 1/10. Remember, one of the reasons that we're reviewing this idea of working with fractions is so that we're able to perform different calculations as a part of work in this course. We can use graphing calculators to help us, but sometimes it's a little bit faster to understand how to do these things.